How's it going, everybody? This is Sean from Morning Lifter. Welcome back to another episode of the Strength and Leadership podcast. I am with another special guest today, Marat Shikhris, who is a supplement owner, correct?
That's right.
And he is has a very successful page on Instagram, and he and I have exchanged a lot of messages back and forth, sharing a lot of the same beliefs and everything else related to training. So I asked him on the show. I think he's got a lot of great insight to share with you, specifically around training. And I'm going to dig into a little bit of how he got the supplement company started. So Marat, thanks for being on the show, man.
Yeah, thanks, Sean. Thanks for having me.
So I kind of want to get started. I'm interested in your background because we had this conversation before, and I think you said it in passing, but you were brought to this country from your parents. Is that correct?
Yep. I was 4 years old. My parents escaped the former Soviet Union. I was born in Ukraine, and it was a communist state there. Not unlike what's going on in China, Venezuela. For people that are a little bit younger. That was 1988. I'm 36 years old. So I was 4, and they wouldn't let us just come to America. This is what a lot of people don't realize about the immigration process back then. My family is Jewish, and that was a big no-no in the Soviet Union.
Yeah.
They did not like that. So basically, we were part of what's called the second wave. The first wave of immigrants out of the Soviet Union was, I think, in 1977. The second wave was me in 88. And the third wave was after the fall of the Soviet Union. The way it worked was my parents basically told the government, hey, we're going to Israel. And they basically said, good, get the fuck out.
Wow.
But that wasn't actually the plan. So we had to first go to Austria, where we lived there for a little while. Then we lived in Italy for a little while. And then from Italy, we made our way over to New York. And that's how we got here.
How long was that process between, kind of jumping around from country to country before you got to the States?
I think 3 months.
Okay.
I was so little. The only thing I really remember about it is a huge airplane, which looking back probably was just a regular airplane to me. But to me, it was, gigantic. I was in a spaceship, basically, Yeah.
I think I always enjoy talking to people who were never, or I guess, even though you grew up in this country, you've got so much background from really just another life, another experience. And so I always admire what people who have come to this country, they always aspire. And the one thing that always comes up, especially from a lot of the different speeches and just from people that I've talked to, is they all recognize the opportunity. And that's the one thing I think that I really love about this country is that there's opportunity and abundance for everybody, but that doesn't mean it's going to be easy, right? I'm sure the things what you've built up to this point in time has not been easy, right?
Well, it's interesting because, it's a good and bad that I came when I was 4. The good is that I don't know any different than what I know now.
Right.
But the bad is that I wasn't old enough to really know how things worked in a different type of life. I just know the stories from my parents. We came here, my dad had $20 in his pocket, right? He sold everything at home, which was not a lot of money here, $20. And my dad built a very, very successful painting business here without speaking a word of English. That's how he started. And for me, Joey Diaz talks about the immigrant mindset.
Mm-hmm.
It took me a long time to actually get there, even though I am an immigrant myself. It took me a long time to realize the opportunity that I have being a U.S. citizen. And it affords me a very unique point of view, especially with everything going on socially and politically now. I have a very unique point of view where I see things from a family that lived in a communist country, communism under the disguise of socialism.
Mm-hmm.
And it lets me see things a little bit differently than people who were born here and don't know any different.
Right. That's it is very interesting, and I think that's one of the things that I was kind of drawn to your page a little bit more is your different perspective, because you've heard and experienced it a little bit, I guess, but you've really, I think, probably understand it a little better than maybe most, given the fact that I mean, you guys left a communist state. So it is something that's interesting. And talk to me a little bit about, so as you grew up, how did you get into, fitness or weight training? What kind of drew you into that realm?
Typical active boy my whole life, playing sports all the time. Most days I was outside playing sports. We moved to New Jersey when I was 11 from Brooklyn, New York. And over there, I was already playing baseball, basketball, roller hockey, everything I could. There were a couple kids on my block when I moved to New Jersey. I taught them all how to play hockey just because I wanted somebody to play with. My parents couldn't afford ice hockey when I was younger. I started playing ice hockey when I was 14 when a new rink opened up here. So I spent those next few years kind of making up lost time. I was on the ice maybe 10 times a week. Very thankful that my dad was able to, at that time, do that for me, money and time-wise. Obviously back then I was a teenager. I was like, oh, shit, why do I have to do all this? But looking back, obviously I understand why my dad gave me that push.
Yeah.
So I played competitive ice hockey. That was the sport I chose. I love hockey. I got to play at the junior level in New York. But then by then I just had so many injuries. I had like 6 concussions by then. I was really beat up. I was very small growing up. When I was 17, I was like 5'6", 5'7", like 145 pounds. So any league play in that junior league, I was the smallest guy on the ice and I was just getting crushed all the time. So I didn't want to play anymore, which turned out to be a mistake. Years later, I realized I had a chance to play, or I had a chance to try out for a D3 college team. I didn't take that opportunity. I went to school. I partied. I was just lifting here and there, kind of typical bro stuff. Every day was bench and arms, that type of thing.
Yeah.
I didn't start squatting till like my earlier mid-20s. It was different back then. There was no YouTube, right? You couldn't go online and search for all these animals who are squatting like 700-800 pounds,
Yeah.
deadlifting 900 pounds. That didn't exist. So I didn't know it existed. I didn't know people were actually training. I was just working out, Then I got into MMA for a little bit, Muay Thai, Jiu-Jitsu, and that's when my serious injuries started. I was grappling in MMA with a couple of guys who were like a few weeks out from a fight. So they were in full-on training mode. And I was a few months away. I was just starting to ramp up training for my first fight. And these guys, they were much better than me. They were getting ready for a fight. I ended up getting caught in a leg lock and I tore my ACL. Long recovery, 6 to 9 months.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually joined the CrossFit gym after that to try to get back into shape. From doing CrossFit, I actually learned, and I'm lucky because I went to a CrossFit gym who actually, they spent a lot of time on the main lifts. For their lifting program, they followed starting strength. It wasn't just, go do 1,000 kipping pull-ups right away, right? So to their credit, they were a good strength-based gym. So that's where I learned my lifts. After that, I saw my strength rise and I wanted to get away from CrossFit because I was also really, really killing me. My body, I couldn't handle it. So I kept lifting more, CrossFitting less. But then I ended up with carpal tunnel surgery on both hands. I had wrist surgery on one wrist. I had a shoulder surgery. I had 2 back surgeries, including spinal fusion.
Wow.
Yeah, so the spinal fusion was 6.5 years ago. And where I am now is kind of a culmination of everything from that spinal fusion.
what what did you learn about yourself from overcoming some of these injuries? Because some of those, especially the back injuries, those can be things that people don't really recover from.
Yeah.
And you seem like you've not only recovered but you've thrived since then. So what, I guess, what was, especially after that surgery, and I've had shoulder surgery too, and that was some of the worst.
Yeah,
And
it
that's,
sucks.
I had a torn labrum in college, and that has completely and forever affected the way I train.
Same.
um, but it hasn't limited my training. So how did you come back from, a back surgery such as a spinal fusion and start to excel?
So you're right about that. It's something a lot of people don't recover from. Case in point is my mom. She had spinal fusion a few years before me. Most days she can't get off the couch. And I try to get her to do little things like let's go for a walk, just some kind of movement. But she's in too much pain. And for me, it just was never even an option in my mind to not get to where I am now. Now, realistically, I didn't think I'd be at the level I am at now. And for a long time, I wasn't sure if I was even going to push it to this point. For 4 years, maybe after fusion, I didn't lift heavy. I didn't really squat anything more than 225. I think one time I squatted 315 just to see if I could. And, it wasn't easy. I had pain every single day for 3 years after fusion. Every day, varying degrees of pain. Sometimes the pain was really bad. Sometimes it wasn't so bad. Things like putting on my socks was like a several minute affair every single day. But I didn't want to put those limits on myself. I just wouldn't accept it. Maybe I'm stupid, maybe I'm stubborn, but I just wouldn't accept that this was such a life-changing thing that, okay, so I have a piece of metal in my back. Now I can't do the things that I love. I wouldn't accept it. I went back to playing hockey a long time ago, and I was exercising. I don't remember how long after the fusion because that recovery was pretty tough. For the first couple of months, just walking to the end of the block was very painful and difficult. But at some point, I did go back to the gym. I started light, just light dumbbell stuff, and then I would kind of ramp up. And then even through the pain, I started ramping up my intensity just to see if I could. And I noticed that while I did have pain, the lifting wasn't adding to the pain. And then over time, I started feeling better. And then it was really like a switch. I woke up and I didn't have pain.
Mm.
And since then, I've kind of been pushing the limits. Before my back surgery, actually a couple months before, I hit a 405-pound squat, which was my most ever. And just recently, a few weeks ago, I hit 475.
Good for you.
So I'm trying to go for a 500-pound squat on my birthday this year in December. That's my goal. Right now, I'm kind of taking it a little easy because I was pushing the weights really heavy for the last 3 months. So I'm kind of like tapering it back a bit.
Right.
And then maybe like October, I'll start pushing it again to try to get to that 500-pound mark. But, I listen to a lot of leadership type of podcasts and audiobooks and motivational type of stuff. And, I don't see why anybody should set a preconceived limit for themselves with anything, physically, mentally, business-wise. I don't think these limits exist. The only limit is your mind, and I believe you could even train that.
That's amazing. I love the fact that just the overall consistency, of your training, and all of a sudden one day just it got better. And I think that's very similar to anything in life where eventually you do something long enough and hard enough, then things are going to give way to your favor. And you did it in an intelligent way too. It's not like you just blasted yourself. You went through it in a methodical, consistent yet persistent manner. And I think that's really, really important, especially to anybody who is training and coming back from an injury like that. I mean, I couldn't imagine having any type of back surgery like that or spinal surgery. So the fact that you came back from that is nothing short of sheer determination and effort. So that's amazing.
Yeah, you just gotta, sorry, you gotta find a way. You gotta find
Absolutely.
a way. Like, I couldn't deadlift with a straight bar for a while because it was painful. So I did trap bar deadlifts.
Yeah.
After my shoulder surgery, I couldn't hold the barbell on my back. I got a safety bar.
Yeah.
So you got to get it done. You got to find ways to get it done. End of story.
Yeah. What would you say is your favorite type of training? Like, are you following a specific program right now, or have you kind of mashed together a variety?
I'm testing a power building program that I wrote.
Okay.
I ran it once before. It was a 6-day split. Now I'm trying it as a 5-day split, just to give a couple more, like another day of recovery, because, as I'm pushing the weights, the percentages now are much heavier number wise, so, not a spring chicken, mid 30s. So I gotta take the recovery a little bit more seriously. That's what I'm doing. When I hit that 475 squat, I was following the hybrid performance method. Are you familiar with them?
Vaguely, yes,
It's
I've
like,
heard of it. I haven't looked into it, but I've heard it.
it's like Steffi Cohn and, her group. It was a straight powerlifting program. So I never ran just a straight powerlifting program before. And the goal was to do some powerlifting meets. I signed up for 2 of them and they got canceled because of the Rona.
Mm.
And so, but I kept with my training, and on the date that the meet was supposed to be, that's when I did a mock meet. So I did that twice instead of a real meet, because that's all we can do now. And now I'm kind of not even trying to sign up for another meet because here in New Jersey, gyms aren't even open yet. So everything on that front, strength sports wise, is canceled. Admittedly, the hybrid powerlifting method was a little boring because it was basically just the same lifts over and over again, repeated for 10 weeks. Not a lot of variety. That's why I like power building. I like getting my main lifts done, and then I like a little bit more bodybuilding, a little bit more muscle building, because I want to get strong as I can, but I also want to look good. I don't want to be one of those guys who's very, very strong and looks like he doesn't even lift. So I'm running my power building program. A couple other guys are testing it for me too. And if it goes well, that'll turn into an ebook that I'll be offering up on my website eventually.
Great. That's awesome. So to kind of transition, as you started lifting, what made you decide to get into business for yourself or start a supplement company? And what really, what's involved in that? Because it seems like it could be a very, very difficult process.
It's difficult because I don't think I could have picked a more competitive market to jump into.
Right.
I mean, I've been using supplements, for more than 15 years, on and off. I first started with Super Pump 250. You ever use that one back in the day?
I remember it. I can't even remember some of the stuff. I used to take, the old NO Explode.
Yeah.
And then there was another one that is banned now.
Jacked 3D.
Yes, it was jacked.
Yeah. That's
Oh, and
basically,
that would jack you up for
yeah,
sure.
that one had drugs in it, like
Yeah.
legitimate drugs.
Yeah. So I was taking that and a variety of others, and it just, but probably like you, I would fall off the wagon on some, and just you'd get used to one brand and then you'd want to switch to something else. And for me, I could never find enough consistency, because either it would hit you, you'd get too high, or you'd end up having to take more because your body would adapt, and you're taking unhealthy levels.
Yeah. I have a big problem with the supplement industry as a whole. That was one of the reasons why I wanted to jump in. Not really making a change now, but the goal is to one day make a change in the industry. And I've taken supplements, but I've never really liked them, because back then I first took the first pre-workout when I was like 19, and all I knew about it was what it said on the bottle, right?
Yeah.
Which is all bullshit,
Yeah.
you
It
know.
is.
And it would always make me feel like shit. Like I call it Super Pump 250, Super Dump 250, because no matter what time I took it, morning or night, I'd be in the bathroom the rest of the day.
I had a friend who he would take, I forget what it was. But before we would start lifting, when we used to go to the gym, he would always say, I got to take my poop juice.
Exactly. Yeah.
And because he would take it, and within 5 minutes, he's unloading one in the bathroom before
Well,
before we get started.
those jokes are still around because a lot
Yeah.
of pre-workouts still do that. um, it's a lot of the fillers in the products. That's what it really is. You know,
Hmm.
most of these, all the big brands, they have proprietary blends, meaning they list the ingredients, but they don't tell you how much is in it.
Yeah.
And most of it, it's filler, and most of it is junk. A lot of the ingredients that would be beneficial are so underdosed they might as well not even be in there at all. So that was my issue with the supplements. There was one I took maybe a decade ago now. I think it was called Dark Rage. I don't know.
I've heard of Dark Rage. I
Okay,
never took it, but
so
I know about it. Yes.
man, I love the way that made me feel. It made me feel like a juggernaut, like I wanted to run through walls, which is great for lifting, except like halfway through, I would fall off a cliff,
Yeah.
just fall asleep. And even more recently, I tried some of the very, very popular pre-workouts out. This was like maybe 2 years ago now, before I started my own company. And same thing, I would feel okay, not even great. And then I would just fall asleep halfway through my workout. So I said, there's got to be a better way.
Right.
And with protein, there's so many proteins that I couldn't even drink because I have a sensitive stomach. I'm mildly lactose intolerant to a degree, and it would always bloat me and upset my stomach.
Mm.
And for me to even have a protein, I worked with my manufacturer very closely that if I had these stomach issues, I wasn't even going to carry protein at all because there was no point. You know, I want to use the stuff that I develop, you
Yeah.
know. So if I had some cheap whey blend that upset my stomach, I wasn't going to do it. Long story short, I started working out early mornings a couple of years ago just to get more consistent with my training. And hey, lo and behold, more consistency, my results grew, you know?
Mm.
Because before that, I'd be randomly working out whenever I could during the day. And if I got too busy, I just wouldn't work out that day. So, as you know, if you're not consistent, you're not going to get wherever you want.
Right.
So for those early morning workouts, I needed something. You know, wake up at 5:30 in the morning. You know, coffee doesn't hit quick enough. So I started making a pre-workout of my own in my kitchen. I would buy a bunch of bulk ingredients, mix them myself. Tasted terrible, terrible. Like I ended up using just like 4 ounces of water just to be able to drink it quicker.
Yeah.
But then I started realizing that, hey, I might be onto something. Started doing a ton more research, hours and hours a day of research, you know, looking at other brands, finding out what are the typical ingredients, some non-typical ingredients, the doses, reading all the science on it. You know, I became a regular on PubMed, reading all the studies, and basically learning how to research and then learning how to decipher the research, you know, because it's not exactly in layman's terms.
Right.
So, and then I found a formula that I thought was pretty good. I gave it to a couple of friends, and you know, I'm a lot more skeptical because I made it. You know, like even if I think it's the best thing, I always think maybe I think it's good because I made it. You know, but my friends, they had a better reaction than I did. So I said, okay, let me look into this. Started talking to manufacturers, which was a really, really tough process. Finding a manufacturer was harder than making the first formula, and kind of got the ball rolling from there. You know, found a manufacturer I was happy with, went through a few rounds of samples, and then we came out with our first pre-workout, post-workout, and protein. And we've been officially open for business since last July.
Okay. So you're right around that 1 year mark then, aren't you?
Yep, yep. Just launched, yeah, 4th of July. 4th of July,
Okay.
2019 was our launch.
What what would you say some of the learning experiences of gathering all the information and then going through and actually getting the launch? What were some of the, I guess, the big learning points that you've learned in starting a business?
It was a lot of trial and error, and there's still more trial and error now. Constantly learning, and I'm trying to take it as a good thing now, early on in the game, that I've been doing a lot of wrong things. I worked with a couple of marketing agencies that, for better or worse, basically took my money and didn't produce results. Um, Chalk it up to a learning curve. There's a lot that goes into running a business, and I'm still currently a one-man shop. I hire out, like, kind of freelance for a couple other things, but day to day it's just me. I'm in my office now. This is where I ship all the orders out of. I have a UPS store 15 feet away, which would be nice, but they've been closed this entire time for the coronavirus.
Mm.
So I got to drive a bit for my deliveries, which is fine. It's part of it. It's a lot of learning, a lot of late nights. I have two kids, so I still need to devote time to them, and I do most of the cooking in the house. So my business hours are mostly at night after the kids go to bed. It's a lot of learning, and in this industry, the really unfortunate thing is that the marketing is more important than the product. I'd like to see that change, but you see certain brands that, I don't need to name them. People can figure it out on their own. Their branding is amazing.
Right.
Their advertising is amazing. These bright colors that pop. They got the influencers. They have a lot of money behind them. You can clearly tell that. But their products are mediocre. So for the average person who's coming from something like C4, which is basically everybody's baseline, anything above that is good. The product itself doesn't have to be that good for them to think it's good. And a lot of what I do is trying to educate the consumers on, hey, this is what you should be looking for in these products. A pre-workout is supposed to do more than just give you a kick in the ass of caffeine. You can get that with energy drink. You can get that with coffee. Pre-workout is supposed to give you more than that. And that's how I formulate all of my products based on. Like, if they could choose my product or if they could choose something else, why would they choose mine? Especially a new company they never heard of. So I do a lot in terms of trying to educate customers.
I definitely agree with you, because there is so much that makes you wonder how much cheaper the product could be if they didn't put all the filler in it. If they just
Oh,
gave you what you actually needed, because I'm just like you. I actually stopped taking a standard pre-workout, and I use my own. I take a scoop of beta alanine, a scoop of L-citrulline malate, and I take a caffeine pill,
mhm.
chuck it down, and I'm rocking, and that's it. Like you, I mean, I did some research, and I tried to find out what are the most active ingredients and the stuff that's actually going to
Yep.
keep me going. And I've been doing that for a couple of years now, and it's been phenomenal.
That's funny.
And
Those are the three I started with also.
right, I mean, there's so it sounds like we're both onto something, but that I think that's so true. And if people actually got more of what was effective rather than just, like you had mentioned, the bright colors, the big time names,
Yeah.
the how much more effective people could actually be, and you might get a little bit more brand loyalty that way. But
Yeah.
it sounds like you're doing it the honest way and the true way, which is very, very noble, especially in that industry, because it's very, I mean, it's shark infested waters.
Yeah. Snake oil salesman.
Yeah. Yeah, it
Yeah.
really is. What made you decide to launch on July 4th?
You know, it's coming from another country. It's I'm big time USA. Love the opportunity in the country. I don't like a lot of what's going on now. particularly on one side of the aisle. Um, I don't like how people take their freedom for granted because you don't have freedom everywhere. You just do not. People don't realize that. People want to go and riot and burn down cities and listen, do that in another country, you're dead. Like
Yeah.
they're going to kill you instantly. And without asking questions, without saying sorry, other countries, nobody's getting canceled for anything they say. Even in Canada, I listened to another podcast. There's a comedian up there. He said that if you're doing a comedy show and you say something that the government doesn't like, they could arrest you. And that's Canada. People have this like view of Canada that it's like such a great place, and it is compared to a lot of other countries, but you don't have a First Amendment right, freedom of speech there. So for me, and a lot of it was timing also of when I started the manufacturing process. But 4th of July, that was a big one for me. I wanted to get the launch on 4th of July, and we launched with a big sale. We had a big sale this year, and every year, 4th of July is going to be our biggest sale of the year, along with Black Friday. And that's just the way it is. I mean, you've seen my videos on Instagram. I have the Stars and Stripes shoes, knee sleeves, wrist wraps. I just got a custom belt from Pioneer, red, white, and blue. I'm all about it.
That was actually going to be my next question. That was my follow-up, because I think that's one of the things too that I was drawn to your page about, is that you are one of the most patriotic people. I mean, aside from myself, obviously, but I'm very much like you in that I love this country, and even though it's not perfect, there's a lot of things that we have here that other people would die for. One of the greatest quotes I ever heard came from Jim Rohn. He was a motivational, inspirational leader and teacher, and he talked about, even through its pitfalls, America is still the greatest country in the world. And he gave the example. He said, people aren't plotting and scheming for 50 years to go to Poland. They're not plotting and scheming to go to Czechoslovakia. Yeah. They're not pounding on the walls over there. People are pounding on the walls in America because America has the greatest wind ever. And when I heard him talk about that, and that's not a knock on those other countries, but it's the fact of the matter is there are opportunities in this country that you don't get anywhere else. And I think you're an obvious example to that. And, it's awesome to see people who have come, even though, you came at a very, very early age, nonetheless, you still came and then live out, their own American dream. I think that is something that I truly admire. And I think that's what this country is all about. And the fact that we can, like you and I, can sit here and we can have a podcast and talk about what may be in the grand scheme of things meaningless shit, talking about weightlifting and building supplement companies and having podcasts. But the fact of the matter is we can do that because we live here, and I think that's to me, that is it's hard to wrap my own head around, even though, like, America is still the greatest. America itself is an entrepreneurship. It is, it's a small business in a sense, because it was created out of an idea, and that idea has grown and it's become, the huge, supporting nation that it is today. And again, it's not perfect, and nor will it ever be perfect, but no business is perfect either. Mm-hmm. I'm sure that you've gone through your own trials and tribulations, right? So what would be, can you tell me, like, what's been through your experiences, whether it be in the weight room or building a business or just life in general? Tell me a time where things didn't go right. You got knocked on your ass, or, something went wrong with a business and you had to pick yourself back up. Can you give me an example of a time where you really were dealt some adversity?
Well, in the weight room, clearly it was the injuries. That was more than just a lifting setback. That was a life setback. I had little kids then. Well, I had one little kid then, and I didn't know if I'd ever be able to play with her, after the surgery. Business wise, you run through setbacks all the time, especially in the beginning months. Um, Take, for example, something that seems so small, my website. There's a lot of options. So I went with this one website server, and then several months later, I decided that wasn't the right one, and I switched, and that was a several $100 mistake. It was basically throwing away a bunch of money. And a lot of that is in the early runnings, I got pitched by this marketing company X dollars for whatever the service they offered. And while their intentions were good, they just weren't very good at their jobs. That was a couple of $1,000s out, and it's hard to make that money back, especially when you're a small company. And I'm not taking any money from the company as of yet. I don't expect to for a couple of years still, because every penny that's made goes right back into the company. I'm finally getting into stores. I'm going to be in Ruesco, who ship worldwide, which is going to be really big for me, because I've been getting a lot of people from South Africa, the UK, Australia wanting to try my products, but the shipping is ridiculous. Somebody asked me to quote them for a bottle of pre-workout and protein to the UK, $50 for shipping. So if I have somebody who's an international distributor, that's great for me. Now, again, I'm not making a lot of money on the deal, but the money I am making is going right back into reordering more stock.
Yeah.
So there's adversity at every corner, but in my opinion, that's what makes it worth it. So when I look back 10 years from now, when I look back on these beginning days, these lean days when I wasn't making any money, I'm gonna know that it was all worth it, because the adversity and the difficulty is what makes it worth it in the end.
I totally agree with you. And you see that with pretty much everybody, right? I mean, all the top dogs all went through, some period of time where they weren't making much. I mean, look at Apple and Microsoft. They started in a garage.
Amazon too.
Yeah. Who was it? Steve Jobs got fired from his own company. I mean, but without that happening, we may not have Pixar, and then all of those movies. And so I'm a big believer that things happen for a reason. Yeah. And there's that learning process. And if you don't go through that learning process, you won't be able to figure out how to, because it's almost like you're smoothing out the wrinkles early on. And then by the time the rubber hits the road, now you're ready to go. You figured out what works and what doesn't, and you know how to become extremely efficient, and you know who to trust, who to go to, and then you have people who are loyal to you and vice versa. So what would you say your vision is, or do you have a why? Like, why do you do what you do? Why did you decide to make that jump into, the supplement industry?
Yeah. So basically I want to help people who are like me. And what I mean by that is, not really kids that are kind of still free from responsibility. I'm talking about married parents, busy with careers, but people who still want to take their health and fitness seriously to a degree, right? We're not full-time exercisers, right? We're not influencers with 1 million followers that just get paid for posting on Instagram, right? So these are the people I want to help. And on the side, I've helped a bunch of people with training and nutrition. I haven't charged anybody for it. I do it because I like doing it. I like to see them reach their goals. That's a big part of the supplement company. A question I get a lot is, hey, do I need supplements? No, of course not. You don't. You can get by without them. Food, training, you could get great results. But I always say that if you need a little bit more, supplements can help. If you need a little bit of boost of energy, endurance, focus, go for a good pre-workout. If you have a hard time hitting your protein every day with just food, have a protein shake. Things like that. I always stress that these are things that could help you. And that's really what I want to do. I want to change the industry from, the bright lights and the bullshit claims to, and I'm not the only company that does this,
Right.
but I want to be a major player in this down the road. Educate people, let them know the truth. Like, look, this is going to help you, but it's not going to put 300 pounds on your bench press.
Right.
It'll give you the energy. It'll give you what you need to train harder, but you still have to do the work. You still have to dedicate yourself to get the most out of these products.
That you bring up a really good point there. How often do you think people are taking supplements or, just showing up to the gym and expecting, because we're a society that loves this, we expect results yesterday. We want things, we want them yesterday.
Yeah.
How important is the long game when it comes to training?
The long game is everything.
Yeah.
If you have 100 pounds to lose, you're not going to lose it this week. And if you go on some extreme crash diet, whatever the fad is of the week, yeah, you might lose it, but the statistics say it's going to come back and you're going to gain more. That's just what happens. People, like you said, people want it yesterday. And to a certain extent, I'm like that too. I'm not a patient person. The coronavirus has forced me to be patient, and I am getting better at it. Being in business has forced me to be very, very patient, and I'm getting a lot better at it. But, especially if you work with a person, if you're helping somebody, you have to set that expectation that this is going to take a long time, and once you get to your goal, it's going to be worth all the work, because if you lose that 100 pounds in a year, as opposed to 3 months, that 100 pounds isn't going to come back.
Mm-hmm.
And you have those good habits already ingrained in you. It's ingrained. You don't have to even think about it. Like, I measure all my food now just because I've been doing it for so long.
Right.
I could probably get by with just eyeballing at this point, but I still want to know. I want to have those metrics that I could change if I need to. If I'm gaining a little, if I'm losing a little, I could change them because I know exactly. And that's just a habit.
Yeah.
I feel habits are so important. Waking up at the same time every day. Even on my off days of training, I still wake up the same time. Either I'll do a little light cardio, ride the bike or something, or I'll just do some extra work. The habits you form can be life-changing. And that's really the expectation you got to set to people, because I think the majority of the typical gym goer is exactly what you said. They want results yesterday, and then they quit when they don't get them.
I think that's one reason why you see so many people when at least the gyms are open, like every New Year's, right? You get the New Year's resolution people, and they come in, and then at the beginning of January, all set and primed and ready to go. And then I think it's roughly January 15th or 16th roughly is where you see like 70 some odd % drop off.
Yeah.
And
real testament to my gym, the gym that I was going to, Retro Fitness in Fair Lawn, New Jersey. Real testament to them, because all their New Year's resolutioners, they were all still in the gym when the gym shut down in March.
Wow, good for them.
Yeah. Really, really low drop off. And I wasn't a big fan of it because the gym was a lot busier. You get to the gym at 5:45 in the morning and it's packed. You're like, what the hell's going on?
Yeah.
But listen, I love seeing the dedication of people.
Absolutely. You've mentioned COVID a couple of times, and I would be remiss if I didn't mention it. So did you pick up your own home gym after COVID, or did you already have a little bit of a collection going?
I had probably 85% of what I have now before.
Okay.
I started building my home gym about 8 years ago, even before I was in the house that we're in now. We were renting before, and luckily the owner of the house let me use half of the garage. So I had I had a squat stand, not even a rack. I had a squat stand, a barbell, some bumper plates. That was it. That's how I started it. And I got it because I wanted to do extra from the gym. That was like at the tail end of my CrossFit days. So I wanted to do extra besides the workout of the day, like more lifting specifically, less cardio type of stuff. So that's how it grew. But then, over the years, I was like, all right, let me get more plates. Now let me get some dumbbells. Let me get a bench, this and that, the other thing. So I had almost everything. The only thing I added during this time was I got a deadlift bar, Texas deadlift bar. And I got a lat pull down low row machine from a friend of mine. Actually, my buddy Ian, who does all my artwork, he used to work out in the second floor of an apartment. Now he's in the basement of his house and he doesn't have the ceiling height for it. So I lucked out and I got that lat pull down. Aside from that, it was all just cosmetic changes. I cleaned up the garage a lot more to give myself more space. I got a gun rack to get all my barbells out of the corner. My buddy Ian again built a deadlift platform with me. It was mostly him and me just carrying the heavy stuff. Yeah, I am looking to get a set of Iron Master adjustable dumbbells, but man, it's so hard to get anything right now.
It is. It really is.
Yeah.
Everything's on like 6 to 12 weeks back ordered, it seems like. And
Yeah, right now with those dumbbells, about a month and a half ago, they had a release date for their dumbbells and benches. It was crazy. I don't know if you went on the site during that day. It was a specific time. You got a number in line. I was number 1600. And I was on the website for hours before. 1600. Now listen, I managed to kind of sneak in and get a bench somehow, but the dumbbells were gone.
yeah.
So now, because that was such a mess, now on the website, it's like, all right, well, these are going to be back in stock late July, early August. Try to catch them when they're online. No notification, no back order, nothing. Get them while they're there. So I check the website like 6 times a day now.
It seems like you're one of the many that do that now. So if you're a manufacturer, you got to be pretty happy, but pretty stressed at the same time, because it's constant from people saying, well, when are you getting this back in stock? When are you getting that back in stock? And most people seem to be pretty patient and understanding that we're in unprecedented times here. Do you see yourself going back to the gym if and when the gyms open up again?
I'm going to go a couple days a week because during the regular day, like I don't really see many people, like work-wise, I don't work with anybody. I don't see my friends that often because family life is busy. So the gym is more of a social aspect for me as well.
Mm-hmm.
I have a lot of friends at the gym that I like seeing on a daily basis. It's also good for business to make myself seen, because the best advertisement is me when I'm in the gym.
Right.
I feel like you got to not only talk the talk, you got to walk the walk. You got to look like you're in shape if you're trying to sell supplements to people working out. So it's an easier sell for me when I talk to somebody face to face, especially if it's at the gym. So I do a good amount of business at the gym. My gym is great. They buy from me to stock for their juice bar. And, I'm going to be getting into more gyms if the gym's ever open. So mostly for the social aspect. And then, maybe on some couple of extra bodybuilding days, go use the machines that I don't have at home, because those are fun.
Yeah, it's been, as I've kind of grown my own collection, it's been fascinating to see how the companies are changing the structure of what they're building to fit not only commercial needs, but the needs of home buyers too.
You better patent that belt squat that you made before somebody steals it from you.
Oh yeah, I actually I just posted today about how I use the lever arms, which are also holding up this desk.
Nice.
How I started doing leg extensions and leg curls with them, and
That's
so
awesome.
I've just tried, like I was having a conversation with Matt from Garage Built Athlete in my last episode, how that's coming up with maximum work for minimum space has been, I guess, almost a pastime of mine. And so it's, how can I save the maximum amount of money? You know, if I don't need to go buy a leg extension machine, I don't want to go buy one,
Yeah.
because, you know, those aren't, there's like $450, and you're using it twice a week,
Yeah.
maybe, you
Yeah.
know,
Exactly.
depending on. And so I've, ever since I've gotten the adjustable kit for these, my training possibilities has like exploded, and the ability to, I mean, I really use them as if they were like hammer strength machines, you
I
know.
noticed. I noticed. It's
It's
awesome. Yeah, the
it,
versatility that you came up with those lever arms, I don't think these companies even thought of them.
no, probably not. And I've actually had another idea too. Um, and it would be neat if, like, for example, it might be kind of hard to see, where am I at this way. So for example, so this is bolted in, right?
Hmm.
What I'd love to see is if this could be a pop pin, and
Hmm.
then you could adjust the actual arm itself.
Yeah.
But then you get into problems with the actual post. But that's kind of been the next thing I've been looking at. But it's been, I mean, it's been fun. It's been nice to find other ways to train, because like you said, I get bored real easy, and doing the same thing over and over and over again
Yeah.
gets tiring. And so
Yeah. Yeah.
I wanted to find, you know, how can I still target the same stuff and still have fun doing it? Because the moment that I stop having fun doing it, that's when you stop enjoying it, and then all of a sudden all this stuff collects dust. So
Yeah.
that's something that I've tried to make sure that I've I've kept I've kept up with, and it's helped other people too, it seems like. So
For sure.
um, but it has been, it's been nice. But
Yeah, I know
uh,
I talked to you about the Titan X3 rack. I need to upgrade soon because my front posts are only 2x3. My back ones are 3x3, but it's a half rack. So
okay.
I don't have the same capabilities for accessories with those front posts.
Yeah,
So eventually I'm gonna have to upgrade, and I was looking at that same rack that you have.
I tell you what, it's, and I talked about it in a review that I had posted, and it's been really good. There are some flaws, like with some of Titan's stuff,
Hmm.
but for the price, and you know, like, I'm a teacher full time. I'm not bringing home big dollars,
Yeah.
and so for me, I have to be very careful about what I buy. And
Yeah.
so I try to make sure for every dollar that I have, I'm getting maximum value out of it. Okay, so the posts are a little warped. They don't match perfectly. Is that a deal breaker for a home gym? Probably not. Commercial
Yeah.
gym, absolutely. I
Yeah.
would
When you
not.
look at the
You know, I wouldn't put this rack in a commercial
yeah.
gym. You know,
When you look at the price difference for what you could get, I mean, if you go Rogue, you're paying 1.5 times.
absolutely.
If you go Elite FTS or Sorinex, you're paying double or
Yeah.
more. So it's really, do you spend that money and get a 99% perfect rack, or do you get an 80% perfect rack and then have all this money left over for everything else?
Right.
At the end of the day, it's a structure that holds your barbell.
Exactly. That's what it comes down to. And I kind of viewed it too as a, like, this is a great secondary rack. You know, my very first rack was this little rinky dink $300 rack that I bought at Dick's Sporting Goods. It was a
Yeah,
half rack,
yeah,
and I banged the hell out of that for 3 years. I've only had this for just a little over a year.
mm,
And I mean, it's been phenomenal. My long-term goal is to eventually upgrade. I would probably upgrade to a Sorinex.
mm.
I think Sorinex is probably one of the most, if not the top of the line racks. But
Yeah. Their stuff is so
um,
nice.
yeah, it is. It's incredible, and
Yeah,
just the customizable pieces that they have. But um, you know, Titan has done everything and more that I could have asked for it, and you know, I'm incredibly happy. But just like anything else, you know, there's things that could be that could be changed and, maneuvered around. But overall, it's been, it's done everything that I could have asked for, and aside from the cosmetic stuff. And I know some people talk about the powder coating, it's not that great. And one of the things I'm consistent on is, for me, that's a luxury. That's a nicety. Yeah. You expect it to stay on there. But for me, I've always been more of a blue collar lifter. Like when I was in high school, everything was rusted. Everything was rusted.
Same.
And you didn't get a good work in if you weren't covered in sweat. And so for me, it was always about come in, it's a very like lunch pail attitude, come in, do your work and get the hell out. And
that goes back to mindset too, man. Like,
right.
Yeah, I couldn't care less if the powder coating scratches.
Yeah.
I just don't care. If my barbell gets dinged up, I care more about that because I spend a lot of money on good barbells.
Yeah.
But, little things like that, man, it doesn't matter. You're there to get dirty. You're there to get grimy. You're there to be uncomfortable.
Right.
If you're comfortable during your workouts, you're doing it wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, it's not something where, it's not an 80s montage of you training, it's where, it's a very long, arduous process. So
look at Rocky IV.
Exactly.
Look at Rocky IV. Rocky trained in the barn. Drago trained in the high-tech facility. Who won?
Yeah. Exactly. And the hard work ends up winning. And I guess the United States always ends up conquering over. So how, you couldn't have it any other way, I suppose. But that's a good way to look at it. But I mean, and that's just it, and not everything I have is from Titan, but a lot of the stuff for me, the price point has really been the number one driving factor. And
I got a couple accessories from them.
Everything so far, I've been lucky. So far, everything that I've gotten from them has done exactly what they said it was going to do.
Yeah,
so
I'm looking at their vertical leg press. That thing looks cool.
Yeah, there's somebody else that I follow has picked one up from them, and it looks pretty good. But I'm waiting on I just ordered their leg press attachment for the lever arms, so I have a kind of a hybrid. Vertical leg press that I can.
Yeah, I saw it up on their site.
Yeah.
A piece I want to get eventually is that Mars bar that you use. And I listened to your podcast. I listened to your podcast with him, and it's very interesting. It's down the line in priority. I want to get those dumbbells first, and then I want to get a proper power bar because now I just have like the Rogue bar, which is like a utility bar. Mm-hmm. But yeah, the Mars bar that's been added to the list.
And one thing that I was surprised with was how new his company was. I didn't realize at the time when I had talked to him that his company is just a hair older than yours. And
I only learned about him I only learned about the bar from you.
Yeah, it is, man. It's I can't say enough good things about it, and I can't say enough good things about Zach. I mean, he is a wholesome, quality, all-around individual, and everything that they do over there is top-notch class. So the bar, and I was having a conversation with someone else earlier. They had talked about the price point and the shipping, and I mentioned that in my review. The shipping, you're going to take a hurting on. I think it was $200 to ship the bar. It shipped freight to me because the thing is it is a monster. And I was really I was like, damn, like that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
And I thought, I was thinking in the back of my head, this better be worth it, And
it's understandable, and I think even for me, people have not pulled the trigger because of shipping, because you can get free shipping a lot of places.
Yeah.
I'm not there yet. One day I will be. I'll offer free shipping, but I don't charge the full shipping price for one bottle. It's $5 shipping. I don't pay $5 for shipping. I pay more than $5 for shipping.
Right, exactly.
Especially if I'm shipping it out to California. I'm in New Jersey. I'm barely making any money on that one bottle.
Right.
But shipping, man, and since coronavirus, shipping's increased by 20%.
Yeah. Because now everything everything has to be shipped. You can't even go out and get it in some places. So But I would say because I know some gyms have it. So if you ever get to if you ever get to the gym and you see one there, when I tried it, it took about 2 weeks to get used to. But once I got used to it, it not only did my confidence explode, but I found my stance back, because that was something I had struggled with for a long time. I was just training just to train, just to avoid, because if I didn't, I'd probably be 500 pounds. And so I train out of fear almost at times, because I used to weigh so much more when I was playing football. But I had a lot of trouble because I hadn't really done any heavy squats. I hadn't worked on my hips for a long time. When I started using that bar, I found my squat stance and I started developing more power. It's still a long process, but it completely changed the way I squat. Because, with a shoulder injury, somebody like you, that would be the perfect bar. Having the shoulder injury, having the back problems, you'll feel a lot more in your hips. It'll expose your weaknesses, and that did for me. And that's why I'm kind of plateaued, because my hip strength is not anywhere near where it needs to be to kind of elevate. But I feel like I'm close.
I only started low bar squatting again like a year ago. And for like the first 6 months, I was getting really bad elbow pain, just getting to that position. And like I still can't get very close. I'm at the powerlifting mark with my pinky. That's my grip now, and I could still lock that in pretty well. But it took me a while to not have any elbow pain, just getting back into that position after so many years.
And that's what I think is one of the greatest things about that bar, is that you don't experience any of that, and you get the benefits of a safety bar squat with the feeling of a low bar squat, and that's what's the game changer about it. And some people, and I had mentioned this in another interview, but some people call it an altered safety squat bar. I don't believe that. Like, I don't consider that a safety squat bar. It's so much different than a safety squat bar. It's got properties because of the handle, but and I think I had mentioned this in the review that I did. It's like strapping into a roller coaster of sorts, because you come in under it, and it straps you in, and you're thinking to yourself, are you ready for the ride of a lifetime? And it's incredible. And the big game changer for me was the front squat, because this is my bad shoulder, and so I've got real bad mobility to bring this arm up, and I can't get a good front squat. And when I put that thing on and front squatted with it, it was the most comfortable front squat I'd ever had. Nice. I don't have to use the wraps. And it was so much better than the standard safety squat bar, because that was up choking me.
Safety squat bar front squats are miserable.
They were not fun, and I tried to avoid doing them as often as I could. But now I incorporate them with the Mars bar, and it sits right above your chest, right here, and it's just a phenomenal bar. And I had told Zach at some point that this bar justified the shipping cost alone.
That's good. That's good.
I use it for, it's my main squat bar now. So I'll go back and forth between that and a Buffalo bar, but the Mars bars, that's my main bar now. So I'll use that for just about anything between the good mornings or box step ups, but I'm always going to squat with it, and I'm always going to front squat with it. That is my only front squat bar that I'll use now.
So there you go. That's definitely worth the price.
Absolutely. It has. Yeah. So there's been a lot of benefits to it, and there's still a good spot for the safety squat bar as well. But, when you find something like that, it's important to take advantage of it, but you also want to get your money's worth out of it. So, when you're spending that much money on a bar, so, but I mean, it's all good. It's all good stuff. So, there's a couple more questions that I wanted to talk to you about. Another reason why I had wanted you on the show was, I was fascinated by your story of immigration. Can can you mention, I know we jumped around it a couple of times, but I'm just curious to know, like, what did your parents, did they talk to you about what life was like over there? Because I feel like so many people nowadays have lost sense of what communism actually looks like. I listen to Jordan Peterson a lot, and he talks a lot about the Gulag Archipelago by Alexander Solzhenitsyn, and he discusses his, his philosophies about how communism worked and why that's such a dangerous philosophy. I'm all capitalism. I'm all America. So, I'd be curious to know, like, did they talk to you much about it, or how did you kind of learn about, hey, where I came from was not the best of places?
So growing up, they really didn't talk about it that much. I think, my sister and I, we were very sheltered by my parents. They were very protective of us. So they didn't really tell us much about the bad. When I would ask questions, they would tell me. And it was more along the lines of, things my dad had to do illegally to provide for us, because they tell you how much money you could make. They tell you where your money goes. You get a certain amount of food that they approve. So my dad had to do like side jobs. Like he wasn't doing anything that we would consider illegal. Like he was basically using his car as a cab to make extra money. And that was illegal. Like imagine Uber being illegal.
Right. And if he had
Okay.
been caught, he'd been arrested.
Oh, I don't know about arrested, because if you do something that they don't like, they send you to Siberia.
True.
And then you're never heard of again.
Yeah.
One thing that I do know is that my grandfather on my mom's side, he was an officer in the Russian army, war hero in World War II. Stepped on a grenade while trying to save his men, like some Forrest Gump shit, like going back into the battlefield and carrying his men out.
Right.
He stepped on a grenade. He survived it. And back then, like they would give you, he had all the medals and everything like that, but like he got a special gun from the military. Somebody stole it from him, and the KGB set him up, basically. So he spent 10 years in jail because somebody stole this commemorative gun from him.
Wow.
So it's a very different world in
Yeah.
communism. You really just, you live where they tell you to live. You make as much money as they allow you, and that's it. You can't question it, because you get sent to Siberia and you'll never see your family again. And that's the end. No questions asked. Nothing you can do about it, because if you question it, they'll just kill you. That's the harsh reality of it. People don't want to believe it, and I understand why they don't want to believe it. They never experienced it. They never heard these firsthand stories.
Yeah.
But that's just the reality of it. It ain't all rainbow and sunshine.
No, it really isn't. And things like that is what makes me, I always try to appreciate the things that I have and appreciate being where I'm at. So, and that's why it's always a blessing to talk to other people, because at least from my perspective, you find out pretty quick how good you have it.
Mm-hmm.
And we all take, this, the doctrines that were created, the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, these things that were really at their time, light years ahead in terms of thinking, obviously there are the slavery piece, those things were way, way backwards. But in terms of formulating the country, I always felt that there was a lot of importance behind the idea of what they had written down on paper. And it's, to this point, survived. And hopefully that continues. So it's always interesting to hear from someone else's perspective. And so I greatly appreciate you sharing that stuff, because I think it's important. It's important it's important for the present. It's important from the past, and it's important for preventing that kind of stuff from happening again.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta know your history.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we're going to repeat it. And you see a lot of that happening right now. People are trying to cancel history. It's the equivalent of burning history books. You know, the
Right.
Nazis did it. You know, it's been done over and over again in history by dictators, you know, who don't want truth to be known to the common people, that they only want their way to be seen. And it's starting to happen here. But I think here there's enough people that don't see it that way that won't allow it to happen.
Yeah.
You know, a major thing that really blows my mind is, especially on Instagram and my stories, I post like my political opinions, and I don't really want to. I've never been a political person, especially not outwardly, but these last 4 or 5 months of COVID have really like basically forced my hand, because there's so much bullshit going on, and it blows my mind how accepting of everything people are, and especially other Russian immigrants who've lived in communism, that they're completely okay with certain freedoms being taken away. They don't realize, and I don't know how they don't realize, if a little freedom gets taken away, it's not coming back.
No.
It's
No,
gone.
Yeah.
It's gone like you never had it. So if we allow, like, something as stupid as wearing masks, okay? Yeah, when I go out and I go to stores, I wear a mask because the stores require it. You know, they have the right to kick me out if I don't wear one. But a little thing like that, it's just they make you obey so that you have to obey the next thing that they say. And if you even question it, it's a conspiracy theory. You know, and like that sort of thinking just drives me crazy. Whether it's right or wrong, just listen to another side of the argument.
Mm-hmm.
And when other Russian immigrants go completely away from that, I just can't understand it.
You bring up a good point there about listening to both sides, and that was something I had read in Jordan Peterson's book, 12 Rules for Life. I think it was Rule 9. And it talked about the people who, and when they're discussing something, it could be anything, it's more important to listen to understand. But in reality, more people listen, or really they only hear to reply. So they're just trying to win an argument. So what happens when you win? Well, you don't really get anything when you win, because then the other party hates you, and now you're alone. But what is there? You won the argument. Well, what does that do? Yeah. Right. And so it was kind of a talk too on, I think, civility, and then understanding, okay, somebody has a different point of view, restate that point of view to make sure you understand exactly where it is they're coming from before your rebuttal. But it was never about trying to win anything. It was always about understanding where someone else is coming from.
Yeah. And I have one particular person that comments on everything I post, doing exactly that, trying to win the argument.
Right.
And something as ridiculous as I posted something about the increased crime rate in New York City, which is pre-Giuliani era at this point. It's just insane how many.
That's what a lot of the numbers are saying. I've seen that.
The gun violence is off the charts. And I posted something about that, and this person writes, I was in New York City a couple times. It wasn't that bad. It was completely safe. What she fails to realize is that the rich, white, upper class areas that she visited does not represent New York City as a whole.
Right.
And that just because you don't see something with your own eyes doesn't mean it doesn't exist.
Mm-hmm. Well, and just, you know, it's no different than any area of town, right? So like, for example, this was something that I had heard, like look at cash advance stores, for example, right? You're not going to see a cash advance store in the nice side of town.
Right.
You don't see them. Why? Because they know the rich people don't need them, right? And so where are they going to go to make money? It's going to be off of people who are in more need of loans than other
lower
people.
Income.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Golden Canaries.
it is interesting. And, but I've always had trouble understanding the points of picking arguments online, because it's so easy to get stuff out of context, and perspective is not there, and you have autocorrect, and there's so many other things that could get in the way of what you're trying to say. And I usually will, if there's something that I've seen, I usually will contact that person directly, because I'm not one to usually try to make a public forum out of it.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. Out of that one person, I have another 5 to 10 messaging me privately and having discussions, like actual discussions.
Right.
Even if they don't agree with me, it's somebody that I know, somebody that I respect. Or even if it's a stranger, this happens with strangers too.
Yeah.
You can have a civil conversation and not agree.
Absolutely.
You know, everything doesn't have to be flamethrowers and hand grenades.
Right.
You know, I mean, if you message me telling me I'm a fucking idiot, I'm going to come back at you swinging.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, you know, civil arguments, civil conversations can still be done. And I've learned a couple things from these people. You know, I haven't really touched on any of the Black Lives Matter stuff because, one, I'm clearly not black. So it's not a subject that I feel like I should be pushing. But I've had private discussions with black friends about it, how they feel about it. You know, some are pro, some are against. And, you know, I learned a lot from it, from their vantage point.
Yeah.
So I appreciate those kind of conversations, even though I do get the random people screaming at me on my posts.
I definitely agree with you. It's those one-on-one conversations you're going to get so much more out of than the random comment, because a lot of times, not only could they be a bot for one, it could be somebody who's just spouting off to spout off. And I saw something that was really remarkable. It was Patton Oswalt, I believe it was, the actor, and he had made a post about something. I can't even remember what it was. It was something political, and an individual came back and was anti whatever he had said. I can't remember what he had said, but he was, you know, spewing, you know, just garbage back at Patton Oswalt. Well, instead of, you know, rebuking back to him, he actually went and looked at the guy's profile and saw that the guy, I think he was a veteran, and he was suffering from a pretty difficult disease. And so Patton decided, okay, he helped set up a GoFund, or the guy already had a GoFundMe, and he had said, hey, go help this guy out instead. And it completely changed his life. They met the fund, and he was able to get help that he needed, and it really kind of changed the guy's mentality. And so it was interesting reading that story, because a lot of not all, but there might be quite a few people who might be saying those things that have their own demons that they're trying to battle. And then that's the only way that they can kind of exercise some of the demons. Mm-hmm. And I started looking at it that way, because social media, it
is the worst.
And here's the way I've looked at it, and I've told other people about this too. Social media is great because it gives everybody a voice, and social media is awful because it gives everybody a voice.
That is,
you know, it's its own blessing and its own curse, all in and of itself.
Yeah.
And people, I always find it amazing. People are so quick to respond to things
emotionally.
Yeah, with emotion, instead of, and this was something that Mark Bell and I were discussing, instead of being rational. He talked a lot about rational and emotional intelligence. He and I were discussing that. And when you respond in emotion, more times than not, you're going to look like the ass of the party.
Yeah.
And so it can be difficult, because we're emotional creatures.
Yeah. Mark Bell's really good at not reacting emotionally. You know, I followed him for a long time, and I see all his posts, and like even people who say ridiculous things in his comments, like he doesn't fire back.
No,
he doesn't react emotionally, and you know, that's something I need to work on as well. You know, because sometimes people hit that certain button. You know, now I've been doing a lot better job of not even engaging. Like, let them say their piece, and that's it.
Yeah. And it's been, it's just interesting because I go through and I read comments from other people. You know, my posts are, you know, not related to anything like that, but I will go through and I'll look at other people's posts of both sides of any story. And it's everybody's just trying to win an argument
Yeah.
most of the time.
Yeah.
And I've found that to always be really, really intriguing. And what has made us go into that route? And it's so I've always been kind of fascinated by that. And but it's something that I think we should all be a little bit more careful with, because it can, I mean, obviously there's stories. I mean, people get fired for stuff, for doing anything, it seems like, anymore. And but it's I don't know, it's just interesting. I just find it interesting, you know. Just the way that we as humans interact via social media sometimes. And so
Yeah, I mean, you do have to be careful what you say sometimes. You know, a friend of ours, he was writing some stuff on Facebook, you know, just expressing his opinion. Somebody that they know, that they personally know, reported him to his job, and he almost got fired for it.
wow.
You know, he's the sole provider of their family. You know, the wife is a stay-at-home mom. They have 3 kids. He almost lost his job because of something he wrote on Facebook. You know, and what he wrote wasn't hateful, wasn't inflammatory. He was expressing his opinion on a topic.
Right.
But this one person didn't like it, so she tried canceling him and ruining his life.
Yeah, that I think that is a very dangerous slope.
Yeah.
And that's where I think you could go back and have those one-on-one conversations where somebody were to say something. And I had seen a friend of mine actually not long ago had posted something, and so I reached out to him privately and I said, hey, you know, you said this, what did you mean by that? You know, can you give me a deeper understanding? And he went into it a lot deeper, and I totally understood where he was coming from, you know. And I think those are the things that you could find out a lot more about people. And because sometimes the longer the message is, the less people will read it. And so sometimes you're looking for those buzzwords, and it'll get people fired up on one end of the aisle or the other. But sometimes you're better off to just reach out to that person privately and say, hey, what did you mean by that? Can you explain that to me a little bit more? Or, you know, I disagree with what you said here. Here's what I think, you know. So those are all, you know.
Yeah, I had a conversation like that with a friend yesterday. I posted something about the guy in Jersey, the gym owner that got arrested for opening his gym.
Yeah, I saw that.
And he messaged me back, like, we didn't agree on the topic. And he's a gym owner. We didn't agree on the topic, but as you said, we saw each other's side. We understood where the other was coming from. And we're still friends after.
Yeah. It's okay to agree to disagree.
Yeah.
And you can still be friends. And that's an okay thing too. So I think that's what we need a little bit more of. And because the more and I go back to Jordan Peterson again, just the things that he has had to say has really sparked a lot of intrigue. Had COVID not happened, I may not have dived into a lot of what he had to say as much as I have. And, you know, he makes the point that when you really look at it, humans, it's a lot easier to be malevolent than it is benevolent. Like, and I always used to think that people were generally good, and I like to think that, and I started thinking about how my own kids, I'm raising them. How often do you have to tell them not to do something that will end up hurting someone or will being bad? Like, you always have to correct them. Don't do that. That's not nice. It's so much easier. Like, we're naturally inclined to do things that are not good. Yeah. And so being good and doing the right thing is at many times a taught or a learned behavior, it seems like.
It's funny having kids, man, and realizing like how much is taught.
Yeah, absolutely.
How much just doesn't come naturally. It's crazy.
Yeah. And how much of the things that you do that you don't realize that they pick up without you even noticing.
Yeah, that's not always such a good thing.
No, and it's I've told people too, it's they expose the worst in me.
Yeah.
My kids they show the worst in me, and
But then in turn, it makes you better because you're aware of
absolutely,
it. Yeah.
absolutely. So it's good because they expose your flaws and ways, and so it gives you a chance to kind of correct things. So
Yeah.
that is good as well. So, but well, I know we've been kind of going for a little bit longer than maybe we'd expected.
Yeah.
But I got two more questions here for you, or actually three questions. So this is how I usually like to end all of these shows. The first one is, do you have any books or podcasts that you would recommend to anybody that they check out?
Hmm. Yeah, a few. I'm actually re-listening to Think and Grow Rich. I
Love it.
read it. Yeah, I read it for the first time like 13, 14 years ago. And at that stage of my life, I wasn't ready for the lessons. I read it because, I was trying to be a stockbroker at the time. I read it because all the stockbrokers recommended it. It was lost on me back then. I was like 23. Too young, not ready. Um, I'm going through it again, audiobook this time, and right away I'm getting the lessons out of it. That's like when I'm in my car or just, have time to listen. Reading wise, I just started a book called Black Box Thinking. Have you heard of it?
I have. I can't remember who it's by though.
I don't remember the author, but I
Okay.
just got it a couple of days ago. I started reading it. I think I'm in chapter 2 only, but I got the gist of the book right away, where it's about overcoming mistakes and failures in terms of life and business. There, it's called black box thinking because the black box in the airplane.
Mm-hmm.
There's two black boxes. One records all of the transmissions from like the control tower and everything like that, and the other black box is the one that records everything in the cockpit. The airline industry is one of the safest of any industry in the world. Their like accident rate is crazy, crazy low. Something like 0.21 per million flights. So, and that's because of the black box. Every time there was an accident, they would analyze everything from the black box, all the data, and then they would use that to learn how to never make those mistakes again. So that's why there will never be another 9/11, because what happened then, they took all the measures, and that's never going to happen, right? The locks on the cockpit, whatever it is, all these other precautions. So they're using that book to kind of use your own life and your experiences as a black box to learn from your mistakes and never make them again. So I'm enjoying that so far. Another book that I recently reread again. I notice I'm rereading a lot of books. Joe DeCina from Spartan Race?
Yeah.
He has a book called Spartan Up. It's like 10 years old at this point. I read it when it first came out. I loved it then, and I'm reading it now again, and I really like it. Again, it's about mental toughness, overcoming obstacles. Podcasts, I listen to a lot of training podcasts. I like Mark Bell's podcast a lot. Another one, he's a competitor of mine in the supplement industry, but a lot of value in his podcast, Muscle for Life, Mike Matthews. He has a lot of really good information, as much as I don't want to admit it because he's a competitor. What else? I also started getting into more Second Amendment type of stuff, so I'm listening to a couple of those podcasts. There's a local range here called Gun for Hire. They have a podcast called Gun for Hire Radio. That one's really good. They yell at our governor a lot, which I enjoy. So that's basically all that's taking up my listening and reading time right now.
Very cool. Yeah, you're definitely well-rounded, it sounds like. So
Trying to
yeah,
trying
that's
to
good.
improve.
You got your fingers in everything, man. It's good.
Yeah.
Okay, so I got two questions here for you, and so give me your the first thought or word that pops into your head when you hear the word strength. What's the first thing that comes to mind?
Perseverance.
Okay, that's good. I like that. How about leadership?
Communication.
Okay, that's true too. Very good. Yeah. Every single person I've asked those two questions to have come up with something very unique. So I always like to hear what the interpretations are based on that. So, so this is the time now for you to give your shameless plug for your brand, my friend. So where can people buy your stuff, follow you? Where are you at? Where can they find you on social media?
Okay, my brand is Fusion Sports Performance. We're at fusionsp.net, on Instagram at Fusion Sports Performance. I'm on Instagram at Fusion Gains. And my supplement line, it's no filler, no proprietary blends. Everything is on the label. Everything is properly dosed, clinically dosed. On the website, fusionsp.net, under every product, you'll see a whole list of an ingredient breakdown backed with published studies on everything, every claim, every ingredient. A lot to go through, a lot of information to learn if you want to learn. All of our products come with a money-back guarantee because I know anybody who tries it will love it. We have 2 pre-workouts. One is a moderate stim that hits all the bases. It's a great everyday pre-workout, energy, focus, endurance, strength. We just came out with a new one, our Mad Titan high stim pre-workout. That's for the high stim crowd. It's 400 milligrams of caffeine. It's Uriah Gerensis, which is a central nervous stimulant. Also focus ingredients, pump ingredients. That one's a heavy hitter. I only use that one a couple of weeks on the really heavy days. Our protein, very clean, 27 grams of protein, no fat, no carbs, tastes great. Cinnamon roll flavor and vanilla ice cream. And one product that people sleep on is our Healing Factor post-workout. It's a BCAA and creatine formula, 5 grams BCAAs, 5 grams creatine monohydrate. It also has some L-carnitine L-tartrate, which is an incredible ingredient for recovery. As hard as my workouts are, and I push myself really hard, I do not get sore anymore. Everything's there. We even have a free ebook on the website. It's a 4-day push-pull program. It's almost 30 pages. There's some nutrition info in there, a lot of exercise science type of stuff, and then the workout itself. So that's where you can find me. Fusion Gains, Fusion Sports Performance on Instagram, fusionsp.net online.
Awesome. And I'll put all that stuff in the link in the description below as well. So I appreciate the time, my man. Thank you very much.
Me too, Sean. I appreciate you having me on. I had a good time.
We'll have to do this again, man. We'll get into a little bit deeper stuff. So.
Oh yeah, talk for a lot longer. I feel like.
Yeah. We'll make that second part here soon.
Sounds good, man. Thanks so much.
All right. Hey, appreciate it. Have a good one.
You too.